So you've got roughly trains going through every 60 to 90 to 120 seconds in the tunnel in San Francisco. It's the Muni light rail. And it looked very similar to what we're going to attempt to develop here in Los Angeles with the tail tracks at both ends of the portholes and a lot of...
Well, there's difference. First of all, they run about a 68 to 70% on-time performance rate, number one. Number two, unlike 7th and Metro, they have a third track they go into and they can come back out. So there's I think you're one of the terminals of 7th and Metro you're talking about.
No, I'm just saying is that in San Francisco they do have some tail tracks in San Francisco, but we just saw that just the amount of traffic that goes through would be something parallel to what we'd be looking at here in Los Angeles in terms of volume of train every 60 to 120 seconds or something in that neighborhood.
You're talking about the Tokyo Junction?
Well, theoretically you could have that many trains. If you had a train every 3 minutes on both branches, that's a minute and a half. If it's every 4 minutes, it's every 2 minutes within the combined. So that's sort of what Mike's here to explain to us, and what kind of ramifications, because there's the difference between he has to operate the things, and a lot of times in the transportation industry we have this unfortunate thing called silos. Silos is where one group of people don't talk to the other group of people, and later on all the problems come. And in this particular case, Mike knows what he needs to do to make those trains operate. The planner's going to consult with him and get the skinny from him up front to make sure everything will work, because a lot of times the planners don't understand. One great example is high-speed rail. They want to put the maintenance terminal in the middle of the line, which means that if your train is here and it's broken, you have to take it up to Modesto to do the servicing. And then one day we were in a car and some people said, well, what if you just have the people change trains in Modesto? This is a high-speed rail going across the state. What if you have the people change the trains, you can pull them out of service there and do the servicing? I said, well, in normal railroad service, if you ask the guys like Mike where his terminals ought to be, Mike would probably say towards the end of his lines. And even David Solo said, well, when they built our maintenance facility here, they didn't build it the way that the way the Metrolink needs it. It should be built the way that the people that run the thing.
I should have been the gold line yard, not the government Taylor yard.
Well, one example, it was built before Metrolink opened, and it wasn't built to the way the operators of Metrolink really needed to be. As an example.
Just to follow my question about these problematic intersections, is there anything about the way they're being built now that would preclude rectifying them in the future?
With the exception of that one intersection, they're pretty much precluded.
You mean they couldn't? You mean the way it's now prevents it from you from building higher an elevated system or underground system? And it's because of what, the curvature or just the
tremendous cost. Tremendous cost.
You have to shut the line down for quite a while to do it.
There's so many people who don't respect the planning and design phase.
And it could be $200 million or more.
And it's always will double it when you're already operating an existing railroad. Then if you already have a railroad, you're operating people, and then you want to go back and retrofit it. You normally have to do it at night, you have bus bridges or shoe flies.
Can you detour?
Well,
Shoe fly is a railroad term for a detour.
If you could possibly do it, then you may not be able to. So it's very expensive. If you're going to do it right at the beginning. And the problem is, you're right. Sometimes the planning departments, I call them the Imagineering departments. They come up with these concepts. And let's just be honest, the regional connector, I have concerns with the regional connector.
Yeah.
Even though the regional connector really looks good on paper and the modeling is so good in terms of user benefit that it will get a federal match. But people are looking, it's a 1.2 mile connector, right? But no one's thinking about how's it affecting the other 60 miles of that connection. In fact, I had a couple of extra copies. Senator Mills, you've heard of white paper. It's truly a white paper. And here's his concerns that you want to share with the group why he thinks having a really long line can be a bad thing for the system has stations every mile apart, it thinks we should have some turnaround points. No one's thought about that. It has to, you know, and if you look at the pattern, like in the morning, those people are going to downtown, why would we go all the way from Long Beach to all the way to Claremont or Ontario? Does that really make sense? Those parts of the planning hasn't been done because the planners are looking at that 1.2 mile segment only. I'm trying to look at the entire picture.
I wanted to ask you about that. It's the same issue I was bringing up. I mean, I'm from Chicago. We have very long subway lines. One of those lines gets screwed up or delayed. It causes havoc for the whole city. I wanted to ask you, I'm really intrigued with Mills' idea. What do you think?
I've asked the engineers before I start promoting it to see if it's done.
Yeah.
That drawing that you have, keep in mind our trains have to be 300 feet. Three-car trains. I'm not so sure that terminal is long enough in the old days to burn a three-car train. You have a picture. Well, we're looking into it.
Yeah.
It is an intriguing idea, even if you had a regional connector, to be able to have the ability to pull in.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been down in that terminal. I saw a dance performance here like 5 years ago. It's quite amazing. It's huge.
Well, John Dyer was here. He actually did. Even though the Biltmore was built, and you can't go the other way. You could. Mills thinks you could turn into it. I've got engineers looking into it.
Yeah.
It's very beginning stages of the thought.
Well, but I share your just the idea of having some terminal point downtown. I mean, yeah, on paper, the through line looks great, but all it takes is one screw up to mess it.
You have multiple tracks, though.
Let me throw something out about that. He caught me on this issue, and I was in the middle of a mailing, and I didn't have a lot of time. I was in a 3-week project where I was working from 7 a.m. to midnight. But anyways, I see the issue is that Gerard will be here pretty soon. We did some cost estimates. We figured about $400–500 million because you've got building basements and piers. You've got seismic safety. The whole thing is built to 1920 standards. The fire life safety systems aren't there. By the time you're done to do a stub down there and shore up all the basements and all the different pieces there, we roughly estimated about $400–500 million. In other words, it could cost just as much to do this as the project itself is only $875 million to $1 billion, depending upon the plans. But here's what we looked at. Gerard and me have been behind the downtown connector as a promotion. It was an orphan project, and we started working on it in about 2002, 2003. We put together PowerPoint, and when Antonio was elected, it was one of the 3 projects that he pushed through. We did the PowerPoint. We did stuff the staff could never do because with graphics and color and everything else and promoting. And we looked at it in terms of the people that use the rail lines as much as you use a freeway. The other day I had to go down to the harbor, and I was coming and I went through downtown, and it was just a pass through. And a lot of times the important parts of this rail line is lots of people have business type jobs in Pasadena. So if you're coming from the valley, you're going to transfer downtown on the subway. But if you're coming from the Aqua line, or you're coming from the Blue line, and one of those lines is a through line across the city, you want to be able to go from SC in West LA to Pasadena directly. The same thing happens if you're going from East Los Angeles to if you're going to say SC, it's a one transpo. If you're going to SC and that's the way the line's designed, then the most you'll have is one transfer on the line. But a lot of people really, the way our rail systems work, we're not downtown centric in Los Angeles. A lot of times, for example, the heavy traffic flow isn't to downtown Los Angeles on the 10 freeway. There's 12, I think it's like 12% more traffic going to Santa Monica in the morning and coming back to downtown at night. There is an imbalance, but it's not downtown directional balance. So Jim's idea that we would want to stub and terminate it downtown is an interesting idea, but I think really if you were going to do short lines and all, you pull them off where the Gold Line, what is it, Terminal 22 or something like that? Chinatown. So if you had a line where you didn't have that much service going into the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, that's exactly the backup.
So from my point of view, then Jim is a very nice man. He's 87 years old.